I'd like to request Mr. Durga Prasad Bhattarai, former Foreign Secretary, Government of Nepal, to please chair the session. I'd like to call upon Mr. Vijendraman Sakya, Associate Professor, Triveni University, to please proceed to the dais. He is going to present his work entitled Nepal's Projection to Reduce Landlocked Barrier through Collaboration with Bangladesh. Okay. Similarly, I'd like to call upon Dr. Purushottam Oja. Mr. Purushottam Oja to please proceed to the dais and have seat. I'd like to call upon Professor Dr. Meena Vaidya to please proceed to the dais and be seated. I'd like to request Mr. Ravi Shankar Saiju to please proceed to the dais for the session. Okay. And similarly, I'd like to call upon Honorable Dr. Sunil Babu Shrestha, Vice Chancellor, NAST, to please proceed to the dais for his special remarks, and he will soon be joining. I'd like to request Chair to proceed the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Namaskar. Assalamu alaikum. It's a special occasion to mark the 50th anniversary of Nepal-Bangladesh diplomatic relations. And this event has been organized by the Institute of Foreign Affairs. I'm very thankful that to have me with the IFA's program today to chair this session. And I welcome all the distinguished personalities at the dais, whose names have been pronounced already, distinguished seniors and colleagues in the audience. I see that the audience is shrinking, and I hope it will not shrink further. Also to arrest that temptation to leave without wasting much time, I want to begin the session straight away. This session is a panel on Nepal's projection to reduce landlocked barrier through collaboration with Bangladesh. And the paper will be presented by Mr. Vijendraman Sakya, and the three distinguished personalities who will be making comments on that paper are Professor Meena Vaidya Malla, Purushottam Oja, and Ravi Shankar Saiju. And we'll also hopefully be able to listen to the special remarks made by Dr. Sunil Babu Shrestha when the panelists have spoken. To introduce briefly, as I'm given the bio data, and I'm sure almost everyone in the audience are familiar with the names I pronounced, but I want to give brief accounts of the CVs, of the personalities. Mr. Bijendra Mansakya is Associate Professor, Economics at the Tribhuvan University. His academic background is that he has done Master of Applied Economics from Australia and Master's degree in Economics from Tribhuvan University. He is a known consultant. A lot of rich consulting experience comes to his credit. He's been a national program manager of Enhancing Nepal's Trade Capacity, which is UNDP Government of Nepal Trade Project. He's also chief of WTO Cell Garment Association Nepal. He was actually from 2001 to 2007. And his consulting services have included Nepal Market Development Program under the GFID project for the assessment of the Nepalese garment industry under the auspices of innovation consulting, an ADB project on South Asia Strategic Framework for Aid for Trade Roadmap, ADB project on Nepal Economic Policy Network, and World Bank IFC project on piloting the trade logistics indicators for agribusiness in South Asia under the Global Development Solutions. And he has also been a country facilitator at the ITC World Trade Net program in Geneva. He has authored many books: International Business Concepts and Cases on Nepal, Global Trade and Marketing, Nepalese Perspective, Nepal's Export of Ayurvedic Herbal Remedies and SPS Issues, and that is a case study, Trading under Preferential Market Access, Assessment of the Erosion of Preference Margins for Nepal's Export with India, published in Economic, this is a article published in Economic Journal through an university, and he has also written on Nepal's trade under the WTO regime, More Gain or Pen, and has numerous articles on economics and international trade and business published regularly in the Kathmandu Post to his credit. He has participated in a number of trainings and workshops, especially on WTO and regional trade in Australia, Switzerland, India, Macau, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and South Korea. So we will be listening from him about the paper. The presenters, he will make a presentation on the topic I mentioned earlier. And following the presentation, we will hear comments from Professor Meena Vaidya Malla. Dr. Meena Vaidya Malla is Professor of Political Science. She was the former head of the Central Department of Political Science at the Tribhuvan University. She has presented a number of papers on national security, democracy, international relations, conflicts, and gender development in national and international conferences and webinars. She has written a number of research articles on contemporary issues of politics and governance. She has authored books, Political Socialization of Women in Nepal, Building Political Culture of Nepal, published from the Adroit Publications, and she served as a member of Senate and Executive Council of the Nepal Open University. She also served as a board member of the Institute of Foreign Affairs Development Committee, and she is in Policy Research Institute currently as an advisor, and the institute, as you know, is a think tank of the government of Nepal. She's also working as a nominated member in QAA Technical Committee, University Grants Commission, Nepal. She has been decorated by the government with Dirgha Seva Padak, Mahendra Vidya Bhushan Ka, and Suprabal Jana Seva Sri. She has been associated as an expert and guest faculty member in Army Command and Staff College on advanced course on national security since its start. She is now the member of Academic Subcommittee, Infrastructure Development Committee of the National Defense University under the Ministry of Defense, Government of Nepal. And following her, we'll hear from Mr. Purushottam Oza. Mr. Oza started his career in the Nepal Administration Service of Government of Nepal in November 79 as section officer and gradually moved up the career ladder, working in different organizations, and he also served towards the end of his career at the position of Permanent Secretary in October 2007. Mr. Oza served for almost 14 years in the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies in senior position of Joint Secretary and mentored the team of experts in formulation of Trade Policy 2009 and the Nepal Trade Integration Strategy 2010. Mr. Oza also led the Nepalese team in the bilateral trade negotiations with India, Bangladesh, China, and USA, as well as in the Committee of Experts of SAFTA Trade Negotiating Committee of the BIMSTEC Free Trade Agreement. He also led several Nepalese delegations to WTO. Mr. Oza holds 2 master's degrees from Tribhuvan University of Nepal in Public Administration and Culture and Anthropology. He has participated in several international training courses related with trade, transport, and trade facilitation, including the Trade Policy course at Harvard Kennedy School, Boston. Mr. Oza is also a prolific writer on the economic issues, particularly on industry, trade, transit, transport, and private sector development. He has authored numerous articles and research papers published in the local journal and newspapers, as well as the international journals. He has specific interest and is working as a freelance consultant now in the areas of trade, transit, and trade facilitation, investment promotion, private sector, and institutional development. So that is a very rich experience. The third dignitary to make comments on the paper is Mr. Ravi Shankar Sainju, former Joint Secretary of the Government of Nepal, who started his career in the civil service of Nepal in 1985 and served in the Ministry of Works and Transport, National Planning Commission, and Poverty Alleviation Fund. He contributed on preparation of national periodic plans, preparation of national MDGs and SDGs, macroeconomic model for periodic plan, and gender and macroeconomic policies. Mr. Sainju also served as Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies. He had led Nepalese bilateral negotiation teams on trade and transit with India, China, Bangladesh, Turkey, and other neighboring countries. He also contributed on trade negotiations with USA, UK, UAE, in the formulation of laws, regulation, and policies related to trade, transit, and logistics development and trade diplomacy. He had also served as Executive Director of Nepal Intermodal Transport Development Board and National Project Director of Nepal-India Regional Trade and Transport Project. Presently, he is engaged in the formulation of trade logistics policy as logistics specialist. Mr. Sainju, a graduate in development studies from the International Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, also has MBA from Tribhuvan University. He has several publications and studies to his credit, especially on economic impact of the conflict, public expenditures management, LDC graduation strategies, Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals, trade and transit issues, foreign direct investment, trade competitiveness, and trade policy. Let me also take this opportunity to briefly introduce Dr. Uttam Babu Shrestha, who is now at the podium. Sunil Babu Shrestha, I'm sorry. After the presentation of the paper and comments are done, we get to hear from Dr. Sunil Babu Shrestha by way of his special remarks and observations on the topic of today's session. Sunil Babu Shrestha was a member of the National Planning Commission, I believe, twice. And he covered housing and urban development, water supply and sanitation, science and technology, public-private partnership, He holds PhD in environmental development engineering and has held the same position in the National Planning Commission in 2009. So who would be better poised to carry out that huge responsibility than him? He is engaged in research, consultancy, training, development, and innovation activities, and has written a book, A Sustainable City Planning Methodology for 21st Century, which is themed around the concept of food green city, and published numerous peer-reviewed articles in his area of expertise. He is an extremely active individual also in terms of his institutional engagements, and has a record of numerous awards conferred on him by those institutions. With this brief introduction, and without losing any time, let me first welcome Vijendraman Sakya, and also the distinguished panelists, and Dr. Malla for special remarks after the discussion is done. It's my personal delight also, because I have worked with many of the institutions that I named while introducing the dignitaries. I once taught at the university and also worked with many of the institutions in the area of development, cabinet secretariat, planning commission secretariat with the economic policy analysis, and home ministry, policy planning, and with the commerce ministry as member secretary of the Nepal-India Trade Treaty Review Task Force in 1996, and was focal point for SAPTA negotiations, and was responsible also for the basic groundwork in the run-up to Nepal's membership at the WTO. So I feel like going back to my earlier days in those ministries, and it's a special occasion and special pleasure also to fondly recall the opportunity when, as Foreign Secretary, I had the honor to sign the bilateral consultation mechanism between Nepal and Bangladesh with my Bangladeshi counterpart to mark the 40th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Nepal and Bangladesh. So let me congratulate Nepal, Bangladesh, all of us, and let's be geared towards the session of the day. With these remarks, I welcome Vijendraman Sakya, Associate Professor through an university, to make the presentation. You will have 15 minutes, and then followed by 10 minutes each for commentators and special remarks by Mr. Shrestha towards the end. Please. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And good afternoon, Patrai sir, the distinguished commentators, and the distinguished participants. So I think I'll be able to finish in 15 minutes exactly, because I have very few slides. Altogether I have 18, but I'll be explaining about 15 slides, which I have to make observation. Okay, to begin with, let me talk about the structure of the report or the presentation process. We'll begin with the introduction that talks about the landlocked nation and the problem in economics and trade, and then what are the burden for the landlocked countries and the economic impacts on trade cost. Having said that, we will see two observations, that is the, why we are collaborating with Bangladesh for overcoming these problems, and for that we will have cross-country comparison of the economic status of the two countries, followed by the bilateral, regional, and multilateral relationship that is, followed by the two countries, so that it will give us a picture about the relation and the economic status, so that we can collaborate to overcome these problems. So based on these two observations, I have made 4 major recommendations as the approaches to be made, intervened for the policy and diplomacy to overcome the problem. And with that, we conclude the paper. That is the end of the paper. So let me first begin. Next slide, please. That what is the landlockedness and then the impact of it on the trade problems of the landlocked countries like Nepal. So when we say landlockedness, obviously the impact goes on the trade and transit as a major issue. So for that, there are 2 major limitations or barriers which have to be faced by landlocked countries like Nepal. The one is the natural barriers, that is territorial, access to sea, ports, and then sea. That is obvious one. It is natural. No one can overcome it. But as second problem, of course, it will, have more impacts on trade and transit. So based on that, the biggest thing is just because of landlockedness, there will be like the problem of complex transit protocols and then procedures, the border procedures, and of course the custom procedures, as well as it will add the cost of the non-tariff barriers and then meeting the standard requirements as non-tariff barriers. So these are the 2 major problems that will be faced by landlocked countries in general, and Nepal is not an exception. So considering that, when there are problems in trade issues, we miss the opportunity of the basic economic principle, like for instance, trade, growth, and prosperity. So we miss that opportunity, or we'll have difficulties to meet or achieve the economic goals based on trade and growth and prosperity. So having said that, just because there are natural and then artificial barriers to landlocked countries just because of the topographic situation, Nepal has tried a number of initiatives at the bilateral, regional, and multilateral levels to overcome these problems by having agreements at the several levels, like for instance, bilaterally, regionally, and multilaterally. So based on that, the Bangladesh could be one of the best options to collaborate with to reduce the landlocked barriers based on the proximity and its economic growth miracle that we see recently. Or Bangladesh is considered as one of the fastest growing economies among the developing countries, and World Bank has mentioned it as the role model for trade growth and overcoming the poverty incidents. So that is why let us first have the cross-country comparison between Nepal and Bangladesh. So based on that, let us see the poverty incidence growth rate, and the prosperity. So going through this presentation or this slide, you can see that the comparison in terms of economic status, Bangladesh is far more larger in terms of GDP if compared to Nepal. It's almost I think 10 times larger than Nepalese economy, and then of course it's larger in terms of population size. And the growth rate is very significant in Bangladesh because it has the very sustained growth rate, so that it became successful to have achieved remarkable economic gains in a short duration compared to Nepal. So just because of sustained growth and then the economic achievement made by Bangladesh, its per capita GNP has increased rapidly after 2015. Although we say that Nepal's GDP, per capita GDP has also increased, but it's not as fast as Bangladesh if compared. So why is the increased GDP per capita is because of the trade and growth in both countries. That is, both countries had pursued the trade policy or open trade policy as the basis of economic growth model since 1990s, as both unilaterally, regional and multilaterally affiliated to free trade policies. So next slide, please. So if you see the trade contribution in Nepalese, economic growth of the both countries, and make the comparison of the growth, trade volume of these two countries, you can see Bangladesh trade volume is far more higher than Nepal, as we have just, about $1 billion worth of export, whereas Bangladesh export is almost $40 billion, and is the single most important contributing product is garment. And if you see the trade growth model they have pursued, you can see the trade balance remained the same problem for the both countries, but there is a significant difference in the trade model pursued by the two countries, despite following the external sector for the economic growth. Like for instance, the Bangladesh has pursued the policy of exporting or giving importance to merchandise export like garment, whereas Nepal has pursued the policy of exporting manpower and the inflow of remittances in external sector. So this is what is the basic difference between the policies pursued by the two countries after they liberalized their economy. So having said that, in fact, both the countries have progressed in terms of trade, growth, and prosperity, yet Bangladesh is remarkable compared to Nepal in this scenario. And just because of the achievements made by these two countries in terms of the GDP, trade, and then the human asset, and then economic vulnerability issues or aspects. So they are being recommended by the UN for the graduation, as we already heard in the first session. So they are graduating in 2026. And the very interesting picture about the graduation is that Nepal is graduated based on the 2 criteria out of the 3 criteria, and Nepal is the only LDC which has been recommended for graduation, but without meeting the criteria of GNP per capita, and it has only been able or eligible in terms of human asset and economic vulnerability index. Whereas if you see the Bangladesh, it has been qualified in terms of all the 3 criteria, which is a very rare case among other LDCs. So if you, just because of that, both countries are being qualified for the LDCs, and you can see next slide. You can see the achievement made in GNP per capita by both countries. So if you compare Bangladesh with Nepal, after 2015, Bangladesh per capita GNP has increased significantly compared to Nepal. So based on that, because Nepal should, cash in on the prosperity made by, or the achievement made by Bangladesh. So having compared the economic status of the two countries, now let us see the relations between the two countries. First, the bilateral trade relation. So in this, we have to see first the trade agreement, which is the foundation for Nepal and Bangladesh economic relation. It was done in 1976. It was based on the MFN treatment, which means non-discriminatory principle basis. And despite the trade relations or agreement, there is no significant trade volume between the two countries. However, there is a significant change in the trade pattern. So that we'll see later on. And just because it is based on MFN, in that context, it seems irrelevant of the bilateral trade agreement, and maybe just because of that, we are not being able to increase the trade volume because it lacks preferential trading arrangement under the bilateral trade arrangement. And the next, agreement in the bilateral aspect is the transit agreement. So transit agreement was also done in 1976 at the same time. And the transit agreement gave Nepal first 6 entry-exit points by Bangladesh. And then there are provisions like for the logistics, warehousing, and then handling of the goods, and then traffic in transit and the freedom of transit. And although there was transit agreement, in fact, the connection between Nepal and Bangladesh to trade was not that efficient until the trilateral understanding between Nepal, Bangladesh, India was done after 1997. That is for the use of the Fulbari corridor, which is in India. So after that, Bangladesh offered Mongla port and then the two railway links, that is Siambat Rohanpur and then Radhikapur and Birol. So there is much scope for the transit. However, if you see the trade volume and trend, it is not that significant. Next slide. So you can see in the trade figure, Nepal had trade surplus until 2008-9, and then it decreased because of its downfall in export, and then it's remained almost stable until now, and in fact it has reduced. Whereas we can see the significant growth of import from Bangladesh. And then Bangladesh, which was in trade deficit and we used to have surplus, had trade surplus after 2013-14. So this is a picture that we have to increase the trade volume together. At the same time, despite the agreement as mentioned of the products to be traded between the two countries, there is a significant changes in trade pattern of the two countries that we have to admit. So this is the trade and transit scenario that is given in my report. And the next thing is the energy and investment opportunities. So in terms of energy scope, there is a growing scope after the private sector involvement in energy sector in Nepal. And there are some of the significant achievements made in energy sector, that is the export-import policy introduced by India for the inter-country connection and then transmission and then the trading of the energy between with the neighboring countries by India in 2021. And that is being supported by the concept of energy ring in under this SARC system. And then, of course, there is a World Bank support for the energy development in regional basis. And of course, Bangladesh and Nepal has signed MOU for the power purchase and investment in hydro projects in Nepal. So in terms of investment, there is hardly any investment except the Nepal-Bangladesh Bank, which is a joint venture between two countries. But there is ample scope for the investment in Nepal and Bangladesh, of course, but there are some technical problems of the balance of payments, liberalization between the two countries.
Sakeji,
Yes,
it's a very interesting presentation, but I have this duty
Okay.
to request you to speed up a bit.
And then, having said that, the energy and investment sector, there is the, relation in terms of regional and multilateralism. As we know, Nepal and Bangladesh are the members of regional trading blocs like SAARC and SAFTA, and then BIMSTEC, and then of course sub-regional trading blocs like BBIN and SASEC. They are both, active members of these regional trading blocs and then of the group for the economic cooperation, and they are, jointly working for the promotion of the least developed countries' interest. And in terms of multilateral trading system, of course, they are, collaborating in the preferential market access for the LDCs, and then the services trade, and then the technical assistance for the trade capacity building of the WTO LDC member countries. So having said that, now let us come to the end of the paper. That is, I have made 4 recommendations or 4 prongs approach for the intervention to collaborate with Bangladesh to overcome the landlocked barriers of Nepal. So the first one is preferential trading arrangement. As already said in the earlier sessions, that Nepal and Bangladesh is in the process of having or the exchange of product for the preferential trading arrangement. So this is one of the most vital aspects for overcoming the landlocked problem of Nepal in collaboration with Bangladesh. Because without preferential treatment between the two countries, the relevance of bilateral trade agreement is not valuable. So that is why we have to move, or we have to push for the bilateral preferential trading arrangement. And that will help us to overcome the limitations in the bilateral trading arrangement. Like for instance, both Bangladesh and Nepal, having the scope of the trade, they are targeting each other's export potential products, and that is disturbing the growth of the bilateral trade between the two countries. And there is a forum or the place to raise the issue about the trade problems of these countries at the regional and multilateral level. But despite that, because of the bilateral trade arrangement constraints, it is not happening. So the first thing is, in terms of trade, we have to push forward with the preferential trading arrangement. So having said that, the second intervention, I think, is the transit arrangements. That is, we need trilateral understanding for the bilateral, connection. That means, if you see the Fulbari corridor implementation after 1998, you can see there was a scope for road connection, but it was not that effective even today because of the transit protocols and some of the obligations or requirements, like for instance pilfer proof, and then the escorting, and of course the one-time block system, and then of course through the road connection there is no provision of Nepal having access to seaport, and then the trade through the third countries trade is not being accepted by India to come to Nepal through this trade, this road connection. So in this connection, of course, we have to push for the rail connections to make efficient, like for instance, Singhabad and then Rampur and then Radhikapur and Birol. These are the two major the rail connection that are being preferred by Nepalese businessmen as well. And that will be easier for us connecting with the, trade with third countries through Bangladesh. So for that, I think we have to ask Bangladesh to, speed up the updating or upgrading the rail gauge, that is broad gauge, and then make compatible with Indian railways so that we can have efficient or optimum use of rail connection. So having said that, now third intervention or recommendation is the sub-regional or regional power generation and transport connections. So in that connection, I think the BBIN's MVA or Motor Vehicle Agreement is the latest one and then the most significant development among the 4 BBIN countries, but Bhutan has not accepted it. As already said earlier, the three countries, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, have agreed in principle for the pilot connection, road connection, or movement of vehicles. Just recently, that is a good sign. We should give pressure and materialize this as soon as possible in connection. And for energy trade, there are lots of recent developments coming up. And the last one is trade facilitation. In terms of trade facilitation, both countries lag behind. Like we normally see the logistic systems, and then of course the trade efficiency, that is the time and cost required in export and import. So based on all these 3 things, that is logistic, enabling trade, and doing business index, both countries lies in the second or the bottom half of the list. So without making improvement in border infrastructures and trade facilitation, the 3 recommendations that I have given in my report will be not materialized that easily. So having said, I would like to conclude that why Bangladesh for overcoming Nepal's landlocked problems. The first thing is, in terms of proximity, Bangladesh is closer in terms of market and distance. And equally, we have to cash in on the Bangladesh growth miracle. And of course, both countries are in a same platform and in protecting the LEC's and landlocked countries' interests. So based on that, the report has recommended 4 interventions or approaches to overcome the problem. So we shouldn't be, we shouldn't lag behind to make intervention on these 4 approaches to, bear the fruit from the collaboration with Bangladesh to overcome the landlocked barriers of Nepal. So with this, I think I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sakyaji. That was a very interesting and a comprehensive kind of presentation. Thank you very much. I take this opportunity also to welcome back His Excellency, the Ambassador of Bangladesh, to this session, which is very, very important, together with your colleagues from the Embassy of Bangladesh here in Kathmandu. Now, without wasting much time, I request Madam and Professor Dr. Meena Vaidya Malla to make her observations and comments on the paper.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. We are very happy Your Excellency has come back. Mr. Rajesh Shrestha, Executive Director, Institute of Foreign Affairs, IFA. Session Chair, Mr. Durga Prasad Bhattraiji, and the paper presenter, Mr. Birendra Man Sakya, and also the delegates from Bangladesh Embassy, and my fellow commentators, and all the distinguished participants, and my respected gurus. I think, first of all, I should thank IFA and its entire team for providing me with this opportunity on this special seminar that is on economic diplomacy on the auspicious occasion of the 15th anniversary of Nepal and Bangladesh relationship. So, it is my honor to have been asked to share my knowledge with some special remarks and comments on the paper being presented by Vijendraman Sakya on Bangladesh, Reducing Barriers and Collaborative Actions with Bangladesh, right? That is projection to reduce landlocked barriers through collaboration with Bangladesh. The paper is highly comprehensive, Mr. Sakya. This is very significant and of course very timely. So I have taken it, I have gone through it, and I have taken it not only as an addition to the existing literature in Nepal and the Bangladesh relationship, but also it is an exploration, a new exploration that is quite a new creation in reducing landlocked barriers through collaborative works with Bangladesh. The next feature of the paper being presented is this paper has generated more evidence-based informations that can address many issues in policy formulation in terms of connectivity that finally promotes economic diplomacy on Nepal's geoeconomics. And finally, focusing on Nepal's economic diplomacy, that of course is the key part of every nation's external relations. Another most important part that he has mentioned is how we can develop a trilateral understanding and relations that is among Nepal, India, and Bangladesh for further economic integrity to overcome our landlocked barriers. And within these parameters, I try my best to be within these parameters to go with some comments and remarks. Landlocked rights. This is more talked about and more pronounced in regional and international politics. That is freedom of transit facilities to landlocked countries, that has been a regional and global concern always. And so that is why the world community has set some of the important rules with regard to the rights of the landlocked states. That has provided landlocked states the right of the access to and from the sea. But this is always a problematic with regard to smooth transition. Why? There are so many reasons that as an academia I have observed. This is subject to the agreement always to be made by landlocked and the transit states. And it always depends on the prevailing relations, the nature of relations between the concerned states. And moreover, it depends on the political will, the commitments made, and the relations of transit states. So transit states, if they may be unwilling to negotiate agreements, they can bring some impediments on landlocked states' free transit. So we need, of course, a transit agreements. That is, of course, the smooth arrangements. We know South Asia, that is the least integrated region in the world, and the lack of this connectivity, it has brought additional cost of transportations, that is 20% costlier compared to trade between the countries in East Asia. So Nepal's participation on regional integration, that is component of economic diplomacy, of course, this will be hardly fruitful without any regional transport connectivities and integrities. So we know Bangladesh is the third closest neighbor of ours. So we have chosen Bangladesh after India. There are so many reasons that we have to go with the collaboration with Bangladesh, reducing landlocked barriers. This has been our preference after India. One of the reasons being this is strategically located for access to the sea and the seaports for Nepal's trade with overseas countries. And next, that separates Nepal only by 55 kilometers through Indian territory. And the most important thing that we do have between Nepal and Bangladesh is we do have hardly any disputes since our establishment of diplomatic relations nearly 50 years back. That is quite necessary to enhance better relations. In our morning session, His Excellency Chaudhary, he has remarked that we always enjoy the best of our relationship. That is the unique feature of how Nepal and India relationship goes ahead. We do have bilateral transit agreements signed in April 1976. That was some more years ago. That has promoted freedom of transit across each other's territories. It has provided also the port facilities, storage, including warehousing, goods transactions, and movement of cargo, and that intends for Nepal's trade with third countries. The another reason being our closeness is we are always the active members in every regional and sub-regional organizations like SAARC, SAFTA, and WIMSTEC, BBIN, and SASES. We always stand for the mutual respect for each other, mutual trust, and we do believe in peaceful coexistence. So effectiveness of the agreements, how effective they are always the concern of the public, and that was much more explained in the previous session also. Kakarbita Fulbari Bangalabandhu route, they opened in 1997 under the protocol of the bilateral transit agreement with Bangladesh, India, and respectively. Accordingly, Bangladesh offered Nepal the use of Mangala port facilities with additional rail route through Rohanpur in Bangladesh to Singhabad in India. The Fulbari corridor, as we know, is the shortest available route between Nepal and Bangladesh. That was in operation since 1998. But that has not been effective properly, and we have not been able to tap all the potentialities that we have already expected. Now, with regard to the exploration of the paper, why couldn't Nepal's relation with Bangladesh advance as expected, despite avenues and the proximities? This has been the major concern and exploration of paper, and that is quite comprehensive, with already 41 pages, well composed, well structured, with already 5 sections. This is substantiated by many evidential data, tables, charts, citations, references, and more evidence-based data. But this is my suggestion only. The structure of the paper is mentioned with the introduction as well. I suggest Mr. Bijendra Man Sakya, if you had developed few lines on methodology and objectives in separate headlines, that would be more attractive and inspiring, and it would have that authenticity as a research paper. This is my suggestion only. Now, with regard to connectivity and prosperity, we are in the 21st century. This is the age of globalization, the age of interdependence, the age of the right to self-determinations, equality, justice, and human rights. So, in that connection, we do share prosperity and the development. This is, of course, the major component and the part of economic diplomacy for what we aspire. It increases people-to-people contact that really translates into better state-to-state connectivity. So we definitely need, in the present scenario, a paradigm shift from the conventional mode of relations and diplomacy to a more reality-based, that is more pragmatic for the shared benefit. As explained in the paper by Mr. Sakya, we have to cope both with the natural and artificial barriers. We do have rigidities in transit procedures for the movement of goods, there have still been an unfinished talks between the two countries, Nepal and Bangladesh. However, discussions are going ahead always on the operational facilities, modalities for vehicle carrying goods to ease transit facilities, but there are still inadequate preparations, inadequate infrastructures. We do suffer from non-tariff measures. We do have many complexions, administrative procedures on that process. So we do have to tackle both the natural as well as the artificial barriers to come up. Now what we have to do is we have to intensify our efforts. We know we do not have any absolute rights of sea access. So this is the time how we give a practical effect to those rights. That is our important job.
Madam,
now, yes,
I just want to suggest that we had
just 2 minutes, sir. We have already voiced against the violation of the rights. We have many agreements and commitments. Now is the time to be judged by outcomes they deliver. It's the time to act, to intensify our efforts, so have to be proactive. This is our problem. Now the time is not just to deliberate, but to deliver, and it's the time to translate commitments into performances and realities. Now how we go ahead is very important. We have very important geostrategic locations in terms of connectivity, and it has boosted Nepal strategically up. That has transformed Nepal's landlocked positions to the status of landlocked, linking India, China, and other powerful actors as well. This is our geographical reality that we are living in. So external policy should be always going with updated diplomacy, with many options, strategies, modalities, and approaches. Now, how Nepal positions steers and drives between and among the community of nations, that really matters. So we have to come up from the survival syndrome. That is, we have to go with the pro and cons and merits and demerits of geography in the light of changes of new geopolitics. So for that, we do need a capable and a visionary leadership. We should give this issue on top priority and preferences. The political will with proper policies and policy coherence is quite important. For that, we have to enhance state capability that has come to the lowest point because of so many domestic mess and disorders. And diplomacy should be as vibrant, as resilient, and as human as possible. This is our regional and global community, how it comes up with integrity and connectivity. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Meena Vaidya-Malla. Now I request Mr. Purushottam Oza to make the comments. I must say that we are running behind schedule and you keep your time yourself.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to remain within the given time. First of all, I would like to thank IFA, Institute of Foreign Affairs, for organizing this important event. While talking about reducing landlocked barriers through collaboration with Bangladesh, that is very much important for a landlocked country like Nepal. What I see that the first and foremost thing that is required for removing the barrier of landlockedness is the transit and connectivity. That is number one. Second, we should talk about diversification of trade. That is also equally important. And third, maybe the investment, I think. So in respect of the connectivity, what I see that transit and connectivity, Bangladesh is the first country that we have entered into a stand-alone transit agreement. We are the separate stand-alone transit agreement with the government of India only in 1978. Before that, we had the transit arrangement, but it was a part of the trade agreement as well. So for the first time, we had the standalone transit, Treaty of Transit with Bangladesh in 1976. Before we are having similar kind of agreement with the government of India. And what I see that different land border stations, land customs stations, and even the, according to the transit, Treaty of Transit, we had been offered 2 seaports, Mongla and Chattogram, now they call it Chattogram, I think, Chittagong, and 4 border posts. The border post of Banglaband, it was agreed between Nepal and Bangladesh in 1976. But the Fulbari was not open during that time. So to open up the traffic through Fulbari, it took completely 21 years. In 1997, we were able to have the opening of the Fulbari-Banglaband corridor after having the agreement with the government of India. I mean, Bangladesh has always been friendly and helping us proactively in providing the transit services and connectivity. That is there. And of course, out of those 4 land customs stations, border crossing, 4 border crossing, currently, according to the provisions that we have made with the government of India as well as with the government of Bangladesh, 2 railway corridors. One is Rohanpur, Singhbad, Rohanpur. Second is Radhikapur, Biral. 2 railway corridors and 1 road corridor, that is Fulbari-Banglaband, is operational right at the moment. And if we take the case of bilateral trade, 90% of our traffic between Bangladesh and Nepal moves only by the Fulbari-Banglaband corridor, if you see the trade figure over here. So it is taking place. And in the series, we have the BBIN agreement that has been signed back in 2015, and series of infrastructure development schemes and the projects are being taken up in order to facilitate the transit traffic between Nepal and Bangladesh. Of course, what we see that in Banglaband Fulbari corridor, we have recent the bridge over Mechi River has been completed just last year only. So infrastructure development is going on. And what I see that in order to utilize the transit services through the territory of Bangladesh, one of the bottlenecks from the very beginning was the lack of infrastructure, adequate infrastructure and the missing links. Even today, reaching out to Mongla Port from Nepal, we have the lack of railway connectivity between Khulna and Mongla. That is one missing link. And second, just before me in the presentation, it was talked about the railway connectivity between Panchagad and Banglaband. If these 2 missing links could be developed, then in that case we can have the all the way railway links from Banglaband to down to Mongla Port. So I think what I mean to say that despite all the arrangement that we have made in paper, it has not been translated into action due to the difficulties in access, difficulties in infrastructure, and other procedural matters. That is why it has been difficult to utilize the port facilities and the transit facilities through the through Bangladesh. I recall that when I was joint secretary during a meeting with the Commerce Secretary of Bangladesh, we had the bilateral meeting here in Kathmandu, and government of Bangladesh has offered 50% concessions on all port-related charges and warehousing charges for the transit traffic moving to Nepal to and from Bangladesh. I mean, third country traffic through Bangladesh. So we had not been able to utilize that completely because the missing link and the infrastructure inadequacy was there. So this is one of the areas that needs to be looked upon. And secondly, it is about the harmonization of the customs procedure, customs documentations, and even the customs working days and working hour. If the customs in Bangladesh, they closes on Friday, Nepal we close on Saturday, India they close on Sunday. If some consignment came to Banglaband on Thursday, then it has to wait there till Monday, till the next operational, because due to this incompatibility between the working incompatibility of the working days between the countries, it has created problems. So this sort of things. And even the customs documentation and the customs procedure, the requirement of the Bangladesh customs, Nepal customs and Indian customs, it does not completely harmonize. So these are some of the issues that needs to be addressed in order to ease the transit services for Nepal. That is one of the areas that we have to look at. And another development that it is about the BPI and motor vehicle agreement. Of course, it has given some space, but what I have some reservation on it. If you see the BPI and motor vehicle agreement, one of the lacuna is that it does not take concern of the landlocked country. So no mention of the landlocked country right and obligations of the right and duty obligations for the landlocked country, it is not mentioned over there. And rather than the imposition of transit fee is made there, which is against the principle of law of the sea and other international conventions. So I think it is my personal opinion that the BPI and motor vehicle need to be relooked. It is to be reviewed, and some alterations should be made on that. And I think one of the reasons for delay on implementation of the motor vehicle is maybe that reason. So these are some of the area. And of course, in respect of the trade, we had the trade agreement back into 1976, but it is basically built on a MFN basis. And after the accession to WTO, being a WTO member, it is irrelevant today. The MFN facility is available to all countries, so that means it has no such significance. So the talks are going on to have the preferential trade agreement between the two countries, but there is some problem, as I see, with the provisions made in the bilateral trade treaty with India, between Nepal and India. One of the article of the Nepal-India treaty says that if one contracting party enters any preferential trade agreement with other countries, then the provisions made in that agreement is automatically extended to the other contracting party. That means if we have that if we have the preferential trade agreement with Bangladesh, and if you are providing some concession to the Bangladesh product, then it will be automatically goes to the benefits will accrue to the Indian exporter as well, Indian goods as well. So I think it will be a free riding problem for us. So I think what I see that we have to go on a selective basis, or there is a terminology called early harvesting, early harvest program. It has been practiced in other South Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries as well. I think now Bangladesh and Nepal has to consider about having a early harvest agreement, so that it will provide concession, tariff concessions to specific products like maybe 70, 80, 100, whatever product is there. I think we can move away with that, and at the same time, government of Nepal should also consider what will be the implication to Nepal-India Treaty of Trade, and whether we really could be, Bangladesh and Nepal could really be benefit out of that or not. So I think we have to look from that perspective as well. So what I see that under the SARC arrangement, SAFTA arrangement, we, both countries, I mean Nepal and Bangladesh, are maintaining high number of sensitive list. The list of product in sensitive item, the sensitive item is very much high. It is actually more than 1,000. So I think that is also not going to work. That's why basically Nepalese agricultural product and the primary product, it attracts very high duty in Bangladesh. And these are all under the sensitive list, even under SAFTA. So I think we have to look from that perspective as well. Since the SAFTA is not working very well for us in order to enhance bilateral trade, so we have to look from the perspective of having this bilateral arrangement, maybe moving through the early harvest program. And another area in trade development, I think it is non-tariff, presence of non-tariff barrier. Lot of non-tariff measures are being adopted. It is not only Bangladesh, maybe to some extent even in Nepal as well. So I think we have to work together in order to reduce the number of non-tariff barriers and the non-tariff measures taken by the importing country in this case.
Well, sir, have to speed up, please.
Yeah. Third, it is about investment. Investment, I think it has been mentioned by Bijendraji as well. Hydropower is one of the potential sector for investment. We can have the industrial investment as well. And one of the areas that we have to look at is the value chain, bilateral value chain. We have to, or the trade in parts and products, intermediary products. I think that is very much important. Say, for example, you can have the collaboration in garment production and agriculture processing, and some other light engineering as well. So I think both the countries should, the authorities, officials should sit together and explore what are the areas where we can have the vertical and the horizontal integration among the industries. Because Bangladesh is going to be a big manufacturing hub of Asia. And of course, as already said, their export volume has already gone up more than $40 billion a year. So we need to have some sort of twinning arrangement between our two countries, and for that we have to have the good, very good transit facilities and connectivity, seamless connectivity. That is very much important, and we have to look at from that perspective. And of course, in respect of the report that the Bijendraji has taken up, I think he has done a very good exercise, but there are some certain figures, I think they are the old figures, 16 data, 17 data, I think recent data are available. I think it would be better if you could update those data from there. So I'll just stop here, and if there are any questions, queries, then I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Oza sir. It's always very interesting and stimulating to hear from practitioners. The practitioner's perspective is always enriching. Now I invite Mr. Ravi Shankar Sainju for his comments. Without much repeating what has been said already, I hope.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer to make me a part of these sessions so that I could say something, whatever I have learned during my tenure in the government and later on also. Mr. Vijendra Sakya, paper presenter, my fellow commentator here, His Excellency Ambassador of Bangladesh, and Rajesh sir, AD of the IFA. I'm not going to repeat, most of the things has already been explained by my fellow commentator Oza sir also, and previously also Madam also has highlighted some of the issues. But just I was just going through while presentation was done by Vijendra sir, the trade issues especially. I'm a little bit worried because when I was going through the figures, the trade between the Bangladesh and Nepal was 1:0.58 in 2011-12. It has reached to 1:1.81 in 2013-14. And today's, in 2020-21, it has reached 1:15.84. It's a very alarming situation for us. Why it's happening? Till 2013 to 14, we are in the surplus. Now we are in negative situations. We need to think on that part also. Why we are not able to export much to the Bangladesh. Is there anything? So, what going through this figure, I also try to see one of the studies that has been done by the World Bank and UNESCAP. They have calculated on the basis of gravity models. It has said that Nepal could use only the 24% of its potentials in the South Asian market. It has a potential of 76% that can go through on that part, in trading part. But when we are going to see the trading cost, what is the trading cost between these countries? What I have seen in the same, exercise done by the World Bank and UNESCAP in 2018, the trading cost, excluding the tariff, the trading cost between India and Nepal is 98.3%. The trading cost with USA and Nepal is 51.4%, and UK is 232.2%, while trading cost with the Bangladesh 272.9%. So there is a lot of, NTMs between these two countries. So that need to be settled down. Even when I was in the Ministry of Commerce as a Joint Secretary, I had several trade negotiations, in technical negotiation I participated. I led the technical negotiation with the Bangladesh at that time. What I have seen that even the Amriso that we export to Bangladesh, our farmers have to pay at least 97% of duties, different duties, five kind of duties, isn't it? Is it necessary? Isn't it? Whether it can be rationalized or not, that is the one part. That's why there is a lot of other issues also. Even the Oza sir has already indicated and Bangladesh corridor. And during that period, I tried my best to open up Bangladesh trade corridor for our yarn export, but I could not succeed. There are a lot of other issues, NTM issues that came. So if we could have, open up Bangladesh corridor for Nepal, the exporting the yarn, we could have exported more than 10 billion rupees yarn to the Bangladesh. Bangladesh is importing yarn from the other countries, isn't it? Why not from Nepal? They have opened up Benapol, Petropol for that, but we cannot use that port. We have to go through the sea route, and that is very costly for us. That is not possible. So I request His Excellency to make it happen, isn't it? That will ease this trade balance. There are other issues, also agricultural product also we can supply to the Bangladesh. That is another part. Second part, I am not going to talk much on PTA. The negotiation is still underway. When first time when we agreed to go for the PTA, and I was leading from Nepal side, so I know each and every story is there behind that. Why it's not happening? So we don't have to explain it, because this negotiation is a win-win game. So Bangladesh has to see how much they are exporting to Nepal and how much they want from Nepal. So both should win, not only one country. So it is very critical for us. That is another part. Third part, I just want to speak one part, is this transit part. We are just talking about how to, reduce the transit barriers, isn't it? Using the corridor from Bangladesh also. Definitely, Rawanpur Singapore has been opened up. But I was just asking one of the person who was dealing, because in October 18, for the first time, fertilizer cargo destined for Nepal from China came to the Mangla port. And that was, I think, I suppose that came through the Rawanpur Singapore. But still, in the border point, it has to be transshipped, in another. That added another cost, isn't it? That could have been managed in a different way. So still, that kind of things are there. So if you see, the draft level of Mangla port is 6 to 8 meters. So mega port cannot come, only the feeder port can come in that area. We are still facing the problem, same time a problem in the Calcutta also, isn't it? Calcutta draft level is low, so feeder port is coming. It means cost is high. That is also. We can see, I mean, that can be slightly reduced in the Chitgaon port, because that is draft level is over, there is over 9.14 meter, I think. So how we can use, how we can facilitate. So that is a very important part. We are talking about using the Bangladesh port, but it's not an easy job. We are facing transit problem with India also, isn't it? In a lot of paper documentation are required over there. We have to reduce the documentation substantially, then only the facilitation could be. Transshipment part is also there. If we could, I mean, if we could bring the, I mean, third country cargo using the CI of Nepal modality, then only it is possible, and we can reduce the cost. Logistic cost I have already indicated how it's a very high between these countries. So in that sense, I mean, one of the options could be the BBIN MBA agreement framework. Oza sir has already indicated on that part. Definitely, Oza sir has also indicated in the framework agreement, they have mentioned one part in, I think, Article 4, isn't it, Oza sir? In the transit issues was there? About Article 7. Yeah, there is mention about the transit charges. And several discussion is going on. That framework agreement has already been ratified from the 3 countries' parliament itself, isn't it? So, definitely Bhutan has not done that. But we are talking about going through for the 3-country MOU for implementation of BBI and MBA. That is that discussion is going on. In the last meeting in the, that was held in March, last March, in the Delhi. Fortunately, I was also part of that meeting as a technical, I was supporting technically the Nepali team. And I also participated in that meeting and drafting in the MOU and all these things. I was there. So definitely it's positively it's going on. So we hope that it will happen and agreed by all the 3 governments, then definitely there is something new thing will come up. But there are some other issues in the MBA. MBA, it has said that, I mean, in a framework agreement, the tracking system will be implemented in the each and every vehicle. That means that there is substantially decrease in the paper requirement. So I just remembering one of the, I mean, negotiation, I mean, the meetings that was held here, Commerce Secretary level meeting here in Kathmandu. The then Commerce Secretary of Bangladesh, he opined that if tracking system is used, that is from the port of Bangladesh to Nepal, then they can eliminate all the document requirements. And if, I mean, I feel that, I mean, even though India will agree on that part, because ECTS we have already piloted in Nepal and it's using it now. We are using it from Visakhapatnam and even from this Calcutta in the train. Although we could not use it due to a different region and in the motor vehicle, but most probable that problem is also going to be sorted out. That will reduce all these issues. Otherwise, we can see the problems in the Banglaban. Our vehicle that is going to the Banglaban, each driver who is carrying the vehicle to the Banglaban, they have to carry only the license. Even the single amount they cannot carry in the Banglaban. They have to live in the Fulbari. That is the provision they are facing the problem. if the importer of, in the Bangladesh, do not feed them, they have to remain without food. Because I have met, when I was having one meeting in the Bangladesh, I went up to the Banglaban by road, and I met some of the Nepalese driver. I saw their problem, isn't it? It's not a good sign, isn't it? That is another part. Different part, another part is also there. We are providing an on-arrival visa to the Bangladeshi in the Kakadvita, but our people are not getting on-arrival visa in the Banglaban. That issue is still not settled. Isn't every meeting, Bangladesh government said that we'll settle it very soon, but nothing happens. So there should be some, reciprocity in this arrangement also. We need to think on that part also. Otherwise, the problem will remain. We'll going on discussing every time, but nothing will solve. So that is the things I just want to highlight here. And here, actually, definitely in the last meeting of BBIN, we also discussed this issue over there also. So most probable, once we finalize this BBIN and passenger vehicle protocol, there is no problem. And I just want to inform you, ADB has already recruited 2 consultants to recommend for the routes and the charges, how to manage the charges, fee and charges. Most probable they will submit that report by July or May. And then that will be again reviewed by the BBIN meeting, and if it is comfortable, then the protocol for cargo protocol will also move forward. So we should take it positively. That is another part. I think that is the issue of transit fee that Oza sir raised, that we discussed it in the several meetings, and most probable, I think, there is another provision is also there. The international convention and international agreement will not supersede by this, that BBIN agreement. So we can manage in the protocol. We don't have to, go back in the framework agreement itself. That is the thing, sir. So this is the issue in the transit issue. Just I want to just focus on, because we are talking about this economic diplomacy and trade diplomacy. I just want to suggest some of the issues. Definitely, the embassies, foreign diplomatic mission has a very big role in facilitating all these things, issues. They have to, now what I think that, they have to change from this traditional diplomacy, they have to work as a trade mission now. That is the part one. They have to also see the commercial intelligence and new opportunities in the host countries. That is very necessary. They also have to do the, market tailored market research also. They have to facilitate buyers' visit to the home country. It is very necessary because there are a lot of, the middlemen are working, isn't it? That has to be eliminated so that the real exporter could get, real producer could get the real price of their product.
Ravi sir, I have to conclude.
Okay. I don't want to go through more on that part. But definitely, the diplomatic mission has a big role. And they don't stick on the traditional world only. They have to change themselves, isn't it? So most of what I have seen, when I was in the Ministry of Commerce, looking after bilateral division, I have a very few connection with the embassies and even the consulate generals. Technically, they are responsible for the Ministry of Finance. There is no doubt on that. But they have to, practically, the technical part, they have to be, when trade issues come, they have to have a connection with the Ministry of Commerce. So we have to change it. Coordination problem that has already been highlighted by the previous commentator also. So I'm not going to do on that part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi Shankar Sainji, for those insights from the practitioner's experience again. Now, in the interest of time, before I open the floor for discussion, I would like to invite Dr. Sunil Babu Shrestha to make his special remarks, and that will be followed by discussion, which will suffer because we have been running behind schedule, but hope we can make it over. Please.
Thank you very much, the chair of these sessions, His Excellency, Ambassador, Executive Director of IFA, distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you all a very good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank the Institute of Foreign Affairs for providing this opportunity to put my special remarks on the topic, the Nepal's projections to reduce the landlocked barriers through the collaboration with Bangladesh. I have given the 7 minutes to put my remarks, so I want to briefly point out the 4 points. The first one is the independence of the Bangladesh was declared on 26 March 1971. Nepal was the 7th country to extend the recognitions of the Bangladesh sovereign rights and independence soon after the independence by establishing the diplomatic relations with Bangladesh on April 8, 1972. Since the establishment of the diplomatic ties, the bilateral relations between the Nepal and Bangladesh are characterized by cordial goodwill, mutual understanding, shared values, and aspiration of the people. Nepal and Bangladesh express the similar views on the various issues, the common interest, and work closely in various regional and international forums, including the United Nations, Non-Aligned Movement, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperations, and the Bay of Bengal initiatives of multiple sectoral, technical, and economic cooperations. The high-level exchange of visits at various levels has strengthened the relation between the two countries. The economic and the commercial relation between the Nepal and Bangladesh have been growing steadily over the years. However, despite of the huge potentiality for the expanding and diversifying the trade between the two countries, many opportunities of bilateral trade has yet to expand. The second point is both the countries are keen on working together for strengthening the economic ties. There are some relevant factors why the Nepal should benefit from doing the business with Bangladesh. Proximity is the important factors to promote the bilateral trade and the other economic interactions between the Bangladesh and Nepal. The business community for Nepal and Bangladesh have the excellent investment opportunity in both the nations, which could multiply the benefits among the countries. There is a tremendous potential for expanding and diversifying the trade between the two countries. Bangladesh government has permitted the Nepal to use the port facilities at Mongla port since the September 1907, and following the opening of the Kakarbhita Fulbari Bangla Banda transit route, Bangladesh has also provided the additional rail transit corridor to Nepal by Rohanpur, Bangladesh, and Islamabad, India. This is one of the good opportunity for Nepal to reduce the landlocked barriers through the collaboration with Bangladesh. However, the Nepal and Bangladesh have to keep the friendly relations with India for the promotion of bilateral trade relations, positioning the economic diplomacy in place because of the similar cultural tradition and the geostrategic attachment. The third point is Nepal-Bangladesh relations are historic and unique. We have the multidimensional potentiality to expand our relations through the economic ties. Nepal-Bangladesh Joint Economic Commissions was set up at the level of finance ministers in 1978. The areas of cooperation are joint venture sectors like banking, finance, and insurance, New initiatives are being undertaken in the field of the ready-made garments, leather goods, pharmaceutical, and PVC pipes. Nepal and Bangladesh signed an agreement on the awareness of double taxations and the prevention of the fiscal invasion with the respect to taxes on the income on 5th March 2019. Nepal being a closed country, the Bangladesh can easily import the fruits, herbs, and spices from Nepal, and the power imports could open up the another horizons in the relation between the two countries. Nepal has a huge potential to export the hydropower to Bangladesh, which can help for the further industrialization of Bangladesh. However, it needs the support from the India as well, whereas the Bangladesh can export the garments, medicines, and fertilizer to Nepal. The fourth is the geographical distance between the Nepal and Bangladesh is only the 22 kilometers. Both the countries' capital cities are connected by air transportation. There is a possibility of flight connections from Nepal to other part of the Bangladesh, including Chatgaon. Another turning point between the two countries could be the connection between the Saidpur in Bangladesh and Biratnagar airport in Nepal. Flying on this route takes just 15 minutes. For those who want to avoid the hassles of the road transit visa, these flight connections will provide the relief. The distance of the road from the Bangladesh in Bangla Banda in Bangladesh to Kakarbhita in Nepal is about the 40 kilometers. And this is just the Siliguri corridor of India that has been separating the Bangladesh and Nepal geographically, with friendly ties among the Nepal, India, Bangladesh, and including the Bhutan. There is a possibility of railway connections, Nepal, India, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. Not only this, the China is building the railways from Lhasa to the border of Nepal, and Nepal is willing to have the connection with the capital city of Kathmandu. So there is a chance of land linked among the China, Nepal, India, Bhutan, and Bangladesh through the railways. I think this is CNI BBR, railways projects should be the priority project in cooperation with our neighbors, including the Bangladesh and Bhutan. Although the sea transport is expected to be the dominant form of the connectivity in the future, and this project will be the reviving Nepal's roles based on its strategic location as a land-linked nation in Asia for the economic development of this region. With this note, finally, I would like to congratulate the Institute of Foreign Affairs for organizing such a wonderful seminar on economic diplomacy, and I hope that the seminar will illuminate to us the various aspects of economic diplomacy in connection with the Nepal-Bangladesh diplomatic relations. I think the speakers of the lively sessions has given the eye-opening views on to reduce the landlocked barriers of Nepal through the collaboration with Bangladesh on the auspicious occasions of 50th anniversary of the establishment Nepal-Bangladesh diplomatic relations. I wish for the further strengthening the economic ties between the two countries in the days to come. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sunil Babu Shrestha, for a very inspiring address. Now, I open the floor for discussion, and the first speaker will be Professor Mohan Lohani, who was my long-time predecessor as Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations and did second committee back then and was later ambassador to Bangladesh. You, sir. Please.
Thank you very much. As former ambassador of Nepal to Bangladesh, let me also share my experience in this field. Before I share my own experience as ambassador, I would like to take you back to the mid-70s when I was Deputy Representative of Nepal to the United Nations from 1976 to 1980. Now, you know, Bangladesh became independent, as all of us know, in 1971, and Bangladesh became a rightful member of the United Nations. And in 76, I was looking after what is called the second committee, that is the economic committee. And all landlocked countries of that committee, they prepared a resolution, a draft resolution, and they were looking for co-sponsors. And you know, Bangladesh, which had become independent just 4 years ago, it came forward to co-sponsor that resolution, you see, on the rights of landlocked countries, on the transit facilities to be provided to landlocked countries. That was really a wonderful gesture. And when it was put to the vote in the committee, because of strained relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan, Pakistan voted against that. Of course, India did not vote against it, but India did not co-sponsor the resolution also. So that was the gesture, you know. And we are talking right now collaboration between Nepal and Bangladesh to mitigate the disadvantages of Nepal's landlockedness. Of course, Bangladesh has always expressed its readiness. When I was there for 4 years, from 1987 to 1991, maximum cooperation, you know, our embassy received from our friends from Bangladesh. You know, I was from the academic field, and students from Nepal, they came to study technical subjects like engineering and medicine, and Bangladesh cooperation was excellent, you see. So, and as regards land route also, let me share my experience. For 13 months, Nepal was subjected to blockade from India, as all of us know that. And so much so that even exports for Tribhuvan University did not come from India. And the then Vice Chancellor of Tribhuvan University, my good friend Mr. Upadhyaya, you know, Mahesh Kumar Upadhyaya, he used to phone me from his office and try to get exports from Dhaka University. I managed to get 7 or 8 exports from Dhaka University. And so far as the, you know, the land route is concerned, there was no land route. Only Radhikapur railway facility was available, and all petroleum products were not made available by India. And that time, you know, the Prime Minister was Mr. Maritman. He phoned me at 10:30 at night, asking for some liters of petrol, some liters of kerosene, some liters of diesel, you see, and then also some sugar. 10:30, I of course knew the Principal Secretary to President Ersad very well. I called him, Excellency, I just received a phone call from my Prime Minister, Mr. Shrestha. Yes, I know your situation. So what is the problem? Then this is the problem. So give me 15 minutes time. I'll get back to you. So in 15 minutes time, he came back with a positive result. He said the President is willing to give all facilities to Nepal. You know, how many liters of petrol you want? How many liters of kerosene? How many liters of diesel? Of course, 5,000 we wanted, each 5,000 kerosene, 5,000 diesel, 5,000 petrol. And the then Deputy Chairman of the corporation, the oil corporation, Mr. Tara Pradhan, he visited Dhaka, and he first tried to airlift some kerosene, only a few liters of kerosene, and to his great dismay, he told us that kerosene was selling in Nepalese market at 14 rupees per liter. And if this kerosene from Dhaka to Nepal is airlifted, the cost would go up to 58 rupees. Look at the difference, 14 rupees and 58 rupees. And he said it will be a political bombshell. Already the system is tottering, and the system will finally collapse. Not only tottering, it will collapse. So therefore, you know, it was stopped. This airlifting also is stopped. And railway was there, but no tankers. We needed about 700 tankers to transport fuel from Dhaka to Kathmandu. That was also not possible. And So far as the land use is concerned, not possible. You know, as somebody pointed out, in 1997, when Prime Minister of India, I.K. Gujral, visited Kathmandu, then he was really, you know, he is well known for his doctrine also, Gujral doctrine also. And this matter was put up before me, it was raised, that please, Excellency, you give us this land route facility. The only bottleneck was this Fulbari, because without Indian cooperation it was not possible. So I.K. Gujral said, go ahead, you know, now you can utilize this route. So from Kakarvitta, by Fulbari to Bangladesh, you know. So the Nepal thus was able to make use also of this facility, this land route facility. But later on, I think so many facilities, Bangladesh is willing to provide us so many facilities. So the question of collaboration, we need not overemphasize, you know. Nepal and Bangladesh enjoy excellent relations, and Bangladesh is all the time ready, all the time willing to give us these facilities, provide this facility. Of course, it is up to us. It is for us to take advantage of these facilities, to benefit from these facilities. Because if you can't utilize this opportunity or facilities, so no, there is no use talking, just making rhetorical statement only, you say. So it should be practical. Practical cooperation means whatever facilities are available, we should make the optimum use, maximum use of this facility.
Thank you, Professor Dohani. Wonderful memories of good experiences, happy experiences. Any other question? Ram Babu Dhakalji, come from there. My foreign ministry colleague, and we also work together.
Thank you very much,
Permanent mission in New
sir.
York.
And thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. Really working in the SAARC division and working with the Bangladesh colleagues in SAARC and as well as in BIMSTEC and other duty stations. Basically, because Bangladesh-Nepal relations characterized by having a good friends, first meeting with the Bangladesh colleague, you know, each other. That means when we arrive in the duty station. Because of this 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations, certainly many times I have visited Dhaka. We have a cultural relationship. We have a very bond of friendship to each other. But I see one issues are here is still in when we talk about strengthening the Bangladesh-Nepal economic relations. I think issues have been raised, sub-sector has been raised like agro products. Because I was also the part of bilateral delegation when foreign minister was visiting Bangladesh that time, and we were talking about how to, that means access the Bangladesh market for the Nepalese agro products, including fruits and vegetables. That time Bangladesh was importing fruits and vegetables from Bhutan and from Nepal. But I do not know the current position because of the tariff rate at that time prevailing was preventing Nepal's export to the Bangladesh market, Nepal's agro products. One area has to be looked into because the great potential between the two countries' cooperation. So Excellency, Ambassador of Bangladesh, who is also present here, could look into that perspective because our relations will be further strengthened in that. One, certainly, I think we talked about historical facts and figure here. I would like to draw the attention of this August gathering. In 1977, there was a Colombo Plan Consultative Committee meeting addressed by then late King Birendra. And in that committee meeting that had been held in Kathmandu, that time it was like 5-6 years of the independence of Bangladesh. Nepal offered the area of water resources for the benefit of the whole South Asian community, South Asian countries and people. That was the genesis of regional cooperation. And immediately, then President, Head of State of Bangladesh visited Nepal. I think that was Ziaur Rahman, I think, at the time. And then idea of regional cooperation in water resources came into the discussion. For a few months, certainly, India was invited to and participate in the discussion. So trilateral idea was there today, but India later opted out and preferred to have bilateral negotiations or bilateral discussion on water resources area An idea came, then whatever the area is agreed upon for the regional cooperation, let's just start it and we'll look into the future. Today, when we talk about the transit, like electricity, transit agreement, power purchase agreement in cooperation with India, that is this. Because I made these remarks in view of this significance of 50th anniversary relationship. Thank you very much to everyone for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rakalji, for those words. Now I see hand being raised by Mr. Mohan Krishna Shrestha. Mr. Shrestha had been our trade expert at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with his past experience with the Trade Promotion Center.
Thank you, Chair. Just, I have a small question. I listened carefully to all the presentation and comments. I just want to ask Mr. Sakya, what are the main hindrances, obstacles, impediments for the full growth of the relationship between Nepal and Bangladesh in terms of trade, transit, and other areas? Thank you.
Thank you. May I say that it has been the last question from the floor because we are running behind schedule. With that, I request Mr. Sakya to respond to the questions, one directly related to you and other points as you may wish. Sakya, please.
There are no direct questions to me, except one. With regard to the hindrances on Nepal-Bangladesh trade, I think there is the trend of targeting each other's export potential market for each other's countries. That is the main hindrance. That means there are high tariffs for each country's export interests. Like for instance, higher tariffs on Bangladeshi garments in Nepal, and similarly high tariffs on Nepalese agricultural products in Bangladesh. So we should first come up with the solution for these bilateral trade hindrances that can be done through bilateral preferential market access treaty, I think. And that's the only solution. Thank you.
Excellency, would you like to make a statement or some comments, observations? You may come to the podium if you like, or... Yeah, please.
The session is running out of time, but I asked for your indulgence to make some comments on the brilliant presentation and the brilliant comments and by the panel, and also the speakers who spoke about the Bangladesh-Nepal relationship. And I feel deeply humbled by the comments of the speakers, particularly MP Lohani sir, on the Bangladesh-Nepal relationship. As for the presentation, I think I have what I understood that what I have gathered from the presentation that we need, and also the discussion by the panelists, that we need to move forward with these agreements which are pending for a long time. The PTA and the bilateral investment treaty that are pending for a long time, and we need to work on it. I think the resistance is from the Board of Revenue of both the countries. I mean, in our case, the Board of Revenue is very much against this PTA, as always in all countries. But the silver lining is that our Prime Minister is extremely positive about PTA or FTA with Nepal or Bhutan. And she has given instruction to the Board of Revenue not to raise any objection for the sake of friendship with Nepal and Bhutan. And I can assure you that all the concerns of Nepal with regard to PTA will be addressed by Bangladesh. I mean, whatever possible, whatever extent it is possible for us. But the thing is that we have to sit for discussion. The PTA negotiations are not taking place for a long time. We have had some virtual meetings which are not effective. We have to sit in-person meetings, and since COVID has reduced, I think this is the right time for Bangladesh and Nepal to sit to thrash out these agreements which are pending for a long time. And taking the advice of Purushottam Oza sir about the early harvest, we can also think of that. And the advice of the other panelists about the removal of non-tariff barriers, harmonization of customs documents. These are the things that we should work very closely to resolve these cases. But I would not take much time. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my feelings about this meeting. And I wish you all peace and happiness. Long live Bangladesh-Nepal friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. Those were very encouraging words in the spirit of our long-standing friendship and akin to the experiences shared by previous speakers. Thank you very much. Now our responses continue. Madam, you'd like to take the floor?
I'll be taking few minutes.
1 minute.
Okay. Just my observation. Finally, we need to have every benefit and the potentialities tapped that Nepal-Bangladesh relationship has to offer. So we do have already many agreements, treaties, and commitments so far, but effective implementation has always been feeble and weak. So how to go with the effective implementations with the productive outcomes is the need of the hour. So that is how we nurture our relationship. That is how we enhance and strengthen of our relationship in the days ahead. We believe that the international relationship should always be guided by a ground philosophy that your pain is our pain, and your happiness and well-being is our happiness and well-being. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam. Purushottam Moses.
Thank you very much. Just to complement the questions by Mohan Srestraji. Of course, the issues in trade with Bangladesh, trade and transit issue, it is one of them is tariff barrier. Of course, tariff is high for agricultural product. Non-tariff barrier is there. Still, we have not been able to harmonize our standards and get the mutual recognition agreement. Connectivity and border agency cooperation, that is also just I highlighted about the differences in the customs procedure and the customs documentation. And I think we should think fresh, like having the ICT to ICT movement, enabling, one is the transport and connectivity that we have to look at, and another, I think we are developing a lot of ICTs in Nepal, and there are several ICTs in Bangladesh. I think we should develop some modalities on between ICT to ICT movement. Maybe it is under the BBIN agreement, or maybe some other agreement we can turn about, and another maybe the intra-industry trade. Trade between the industries in Bangladesh and Nepal, that is very much important in order to enhance complementarity. Because if you see the trade figure after 2013-14, it has just, before that we were in a balancing situation, but after that the trade balance has turned negative, heavily negative for Nepal. So I think we have to think fresh in order to correct this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would you like to add a few words?
I'm just like to, I have already explained it, and His Excellency has already clarified it also. I'm very happy that I have mentioned that PTA, it should be win-win game. So that is the only thing I want to say, nothing more than that. Because I know why it is taking, because before I came here, I was just going through the items that Bangladesh was offering for Nepal, and the items that is offered by Nepal to the Bangladesh, isn't it? That doesn't work, frankly speaking. So we have to sit together and finalize that both parties should be comfortable in that part. Because there should not be confusion. When we decided to go for the PTA, it was in the Dhaka meeting. I was leading a Nepali technical team at that time. And before that, the Nepalese has perception that Bangladesh has offered unilaterally duty-free, quota-free. And that was not working. And when we discussed it later on, and frankly, the then Commerce Minister told me that it's not the unilateral. There must be reciprocity on that part. So we went for PTA after that. So it has to be settled as early as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would Dr. Shrestha like to add any word? No. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have come to the end of this session, and I don't have to summarize anything, but we have very good takeaways from this session, I believe. I personally want to rephrase the same takeouts in some other words. We heard in the previous session and also partly in this session that Bangladesh is doing so much better than Nepal. Nepal is lagging behind. But I personally think that Nepal does not need to feel intimidated with what Bangladesh has been doing. Bangladesh is a very young nation, and it's akin to the spirit of youth. Bangladesh has been very active from its very first days of independence. That we have seen at the United Nations. For example, what Bangladesh has achieved today is not achieved just overnight and out of the blue moon. Until 2001, Bangladesh was the only leader of the least developed countries. There was no mechanism to rotate the leadership among least developed countries. And Bangladesh took that initiative from the very first days and then did its best to bring least developed countries together. And as we heard from Professor Lohani, that kind of cooperation was not limited to the least developed countries alone. It went beyond that and extended to the interest of landlocked developing countries as well. So Bangladesh, being a natural leader of least developed countries, has accumulated a lot of experience. And some countries are fast to learn with experiences, some late. We have been slow to learn from experiences of our own and of neighbors also. I think it's never too late to learn from experiences. And with a good neighbor, with excellent relationship, and excellent goodwill and friendship towards Nepal, I think Bangladesh is a natural candidate for our collaboration to any extent, for our own development, of course, of bilateral interest also. Secondly, I just want to repeat the same thing, that there have been so many occasions in the past that Nepal has shied away from taking so many issues of bilateral or trilateral interest on the table. We have talked on the sideline, but not formally. That barrier was broken, at least with the water resources, when Bangladesh actually prodded us, prompted us to take it up with India. We did. And earlier, when India seemed to be disinterested in taking up water resources issues trilaterally, with some prompt from Bangladesh, it was possible. And we did have export mechanism also. So I think we need to make the best use of bilateral mechanisms and also trilateral mechanisms where possible, and perhaps invent more mechanisms if we feel we feel the need that way. Third, as we all noticed that His Excellency the Ambassador of Bangladesh has been so gracious to come and be present in both the sessions throughout the day, despite his busy schedule, and also make comments in a very, very positive spirit. Being trade negotiator at one time, I myself know where the hurdles are in both countries. But these are not issues that can be solved by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs or talking among ourselves alone, among Nepalese themselves or the Bangladeshis themselves. We have to come forward to take them up bilaterally, together, in various forms of interaction, informal interaction rather. If we take one lesson from the success of ASEAN countries, they keep on repeating that the best gift we found, we received from coming together as ASEAN is the facilitation of bilateral interaction at the not just people to people, amorphous people to people level, but individual to individual level, expert to expert level, scientist to scientist level. And that's how the constituency for favorable relationship and favorable outlook for the interest of other countries is also inculcated. I think we need to do that. Of course, we have so many students studying Bangladesh, and there is very rich exchange of visits also. But then, perhaps we have limited ourselves to take that kind of interaction to a higher level, not in terms of the official higher level, but in terms of the inclusion of whose visits are necessary, and interaction, familiarization is necessary. I think with informal kind of relationship, a lot can be achieved. And that was my personal experience also while working for the bilateral consultation mechanism. We have this bilateral consultation mechanism where anything can be taken up, where the things have not moved. And I believe that mechanism is working well, and we can enhance it further. So the role of Ministry of Foreign Affairs also is very crucial. Foreign policy is, after all, the extension of domestic policies. But it doesn't come automatically. It comes with training and orientation. And we don't have that mechanism in Nepal. I don't know much. I have no intention to speak about Bangladesh experience on that. But we have no system of cross-deputation. The foreign ministry officials who have to represent again and again other ministries, other departments, have little interaction or orientation as to how they work outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I think a lot has to go into training and reorienting the foreign ministry officials also, diplomats also. So I think with those few rephrased takeouts, I thank everyone, especially the presenter of the paper. Excellent presentation and excellent comments from distinguished panel, special remarks by Dr. Sunil Babu Srestha, and excellent participation from the floor despite the very small size of the audience. It was a quality size remaining, and it was a quality question answer session also. And the comments and observations, I hope, will be well taken care of by the presenter of the paper. And I know the ambassador of Bangladesh has taken note of several of these concerns, and we can sit down together. He will be able to facilitate his side to understand Nepalese concerns better, and I hope we can have his counterpart in Dhaka also to do the same very soon. With this, and with special thanks to the Institute of Foreign Affairs for having organized this event, and appreciation for your presence, Bangladesh Ambassador, Executive Director of IFA, and all senior colleagues and distinguished members in the audience. I think it's time to bring the session to close, and I declare the session over. Thank you.
I would like to call upon Deputy Executive Director of Institute of Foreign Affairs for vote of thanks.
Excellency, Ambassador of Bangladesh to Nepal, Mr. Chaudhary, Executive Director Rajesh Shrestha, distinguished panelists, presenters, and commentators, all my seniors, I say, as Sir Durga sir already told, only the quality number has remained here now, and only few enthusiasts in the last table I see there. Otherwise, most of the participants who are present here now are from Bangladesh Embassy and senior personalities. So thank you very much for this whole time, and I see because of long engagement, face already tired, so this my last role is always without taking much of your time. I'd like to thank all of you on behalf of the Institute of Foreign Affairs and our team for this active participation and fruitful outcome of the session today. And for this arrangement, I would also like to thank my colleagues from IFA. And this is my first, after my appointment, first participation in this type of program. And hopefully we'll continue with all your supports in future as well. If you want to have some additional outcome or takeaway from this session, you are always welcome to contact us of the today's paper and any other information. Thank you very much. And before wrap up, I would just like to request you to come for a group photograph, and the session will be over. Thank you very much.